Here we are in NSORRA round 3 at Beaver Ride Park in Economy, Nova Scotia. I had an awful start there, I must have missed the start switch. I had to reposition my grip, grab it again, so it kind of put me well in the back of the pack here. I believe there's about 19 people in our class today. This is a 2-hour race. Super dusty here at the beginning. The GoPro doesn't seem to really show how I remember it. It always seems to be worse when it's on in real life versus the footage, but super dusty. So it made it really hard to see. There's a bit of a bunch up there. Something must have happened, maybe somebody stalled. Able to get that guy without too much issue. After the track, we hop into the woods. A lot of exposed roots, kind of some mossy areas. Seem to have a little bit of moisture still in the ground, so the roots were quite slippery. Running a IRC VE33S. First time I've run that tire. Had a buddy run it in some local conditions and he seemed to really like it, so I decided to give it a try. And actually really fond of this tire. I'll probably end up running it a fair bit. Seems to be a good all-around tire. Running the Bridgestone X31 front and running that fairly consistent. It seems to be a really good performing tire. And these little switchbacks down by the brook were fun, and then kind of come up out of there. At this point in the game, I'm just trying to kind of do a scouting lap, just to get an idea what it's like. So try not to push myself too hard in the beginning. I always find that I get gassed at the end if I go too hard at the beginning. So something I got to work on certainly is my stamina. A lot of loose, rocky, kind of sections here and there. And a body position was a huge thing for me. I always found that later on in the race when I got tired, my body position wasn't great. It really unsettled the bike, so definitely gotta work on that, maintaining that body position. Had somebody rev behind me, so I let him go by. Certainly I know I'm not in any spot to be competitive at this point, so I'm really not interested to hold people up if I can figure out that they're behind me. This is first year running Intermediate A at this track, so last year I ran Intermediate B. Kind of heard some positive things about the upper side of the track that the experts in Intermediate A were running, so I really kind of wanted an opportunity to just see the whole track, so chose to do the A more for that than the longevity of the race. Not certainly interested in the race for 2 hours, but I do like to see the whole track, so it's kind of one of those things I gotta figure it out. But not sure what position I'm in at this point in the game. Maybe about mid-pack, I would say. Bit of an uphill here, buddy loses it, but luckily there's a left line there and I was able to keep enough momentum. There was a bit of a root at the top that I was able to get over. Fun kind of flowy uphill. Looks like buddy might have got a little sideways there and put her in the bushes a little bit. Came down here to this bridge and kind of a very steep switchback. Of course, I bumped off the edge of it still, but was able to get it running fairly quick. Didn't probably cost me a whole lot of time, but kind of hard to tell how steep it is there. Certainly the switchbacks made it manageable. Let this guy go by, I could hear him revving up, so I let him go and kind of backfired. I think Buddy knew there was something behind him and he ended up causing a little bit of a chaos there and kind of got off on the left. There were some loose rocks, but luckily I didn't end up going down. Yeah, this upper side is new to me, so I didn't know what to expect. That was the guy that kind of lost on the corner there, let him go by. Apparently I'm letting everybody go by. Oh, that was the guy I ended up letting go by, and he got hung up in front of the guy, so I'll let him take that position back. Through the woods here, it was definitely flowy, just trying to work on a pace without getting too jacked up. But a few areas with some mud. Ruts kind of got a little worse throughout the race, but it's one thing I'm not super familiar with is riding in the ruts and the mud, so that'd be something I should probably look at doing. I'm just not a fan of it, so I try to avoid it when possible. Section through here had lots of little roots in it. It was slippery. It's hard to tell on camera, but definitely made for some really slick, interesting conditions. But he lets me go by here. Looks like a fairly new section. They cut through the woods fairly tight here. There's 2 trees that you kind of had to just hit perfectly in order to avoid hitting bars or pegs. But I came down this straight stretch, and I thought I kept going straight, and it did in the last minute. I ended up in this mud hole. Stalled it because it just ate all the power. It's hard to tell. It's just skeggy nastiness. Thought this root stump wasn't as big, and it just, my tires are both high and dry, and it's caught on the pegs, and I just, fairly discouraged at this point, but trying not to overexert myself.
No, it's okay. I just got stuck on this log. The road turned, and
yeah, it sounds like Buddy I just passed. He followed me in there, so anyway, even trying to get going there, just still slippery there. Another guy sneaks by there. I can't remember if it's 6 or 7 guys got by me there, so I dare say I'm probably pretty close to the back of the pack at this point. Can't be confident at that point in time, but there was a fairly deep rut here, and third gear seemed to struggle with it, so I kind of had to approach it a little different after a few times. But it looks like a fairly new section, and I completely missed another turn, so I thought I kept going straight. Anyway, trying to get repositioned up, get around. 2 guys get by me there. Just kind of making myself more work at this point in time, but anyway, it is what it is. There's a fairly steep downhill here, and somebody stopped at the bottom. I thought I'd wait, but somebody else went by, so definitely got to be more aggressive. So I went, and I didn't realize, but I ended up hitting a tree stump or something, and it stopped me and put me off. Fairly steep here, it's hard to tell, but it's one of the over 50 guys got by me. Anyway, I kind of got here, and I was able to kind of side hill up out. Yeah, so at this point, not super far into the first lap, and already having some navigational issues, but anyway, it's part of racing, and I know it's a long race, so I just gotta focus and stay calm and conserve energy. Pause there just to kind of see what this hill looked like. It's fairly steep, but seemed to be good traction. The bridge at the bottom was actually probably the slickest part of it. Came through loose on the bridge. But so anyway, just trying to kind of settle my heart rate down. Get back to that hill there. Buddy took the left, and I took the last time. I was going to take the right, but I wasn't able to carry enough momentum. But now that I've tried kind of both sides, I knew, depending where the guy in front of me went, I'd have some options just to keep open. But just trying to find a rhythm here, and then we get to this hill, and it looks like somebody's kind of struggling with that first pivot. Couple guys in front of me, and there's just not a lot of room for guys to ride side by side, so it's like no sense to pressure them, screw myself up, so I just held up for a few minutes. little pivot around, and then there was another little mishap, and 3 of them are just on the landing on the second pivot. So gotta take that opportunity to have a drink, water, and kind of chill out for a few minutes. It looks like about an hour and 22 left in the race, so about 40 minutes into this race so far. Quite lengthy lap times. I think my average lap time was in the 27-minute range, so my fastest lap, which I do have a video of a complete lap if you're interested to see what the intermediate A loop was like, you can watch that. I knew this spot had a little straight stretch, so I utilized that when I could to kind of accelerate harder. I'd utilize that as an advantage if I was behind someone. Just trying to kind of find a pace at this point in the race, the second lap of the race. Didn't give me a lot of opportunity to try different lines and kind of remember the track, because I only got around a couple times where it was a lengthy lap time, and, which made it interesting on the other side of the coin. So super loose there. I kind of front skidded, bumped the tree, just kind of fell over. And then kind of reapproached at a different angle from then on. Just front tire, just didn't want to grip those wet roots there. So. This section, there was a couple really big roots. It's hard to tell, but they were slippery, and just trying to make sure I had a good throttle and clutch control was key. Overall, this track was quite challenging. This mud was pretty deep, and the rut just kept getting deeper and deeper. It was almost the point you could tip over and the bike would stand up. Later on in the race, fork legs were scraping and the pegs were scraping. I had to lift my leg. Definitely got to work on the old mud situations, because it's not something I'm very confident in. Probably lost a lot of time through there, but I guess that's part of the process. Trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone and do things that you're not used to. That's how you improve. Kind of a uphill flowy berm here. It's kind of a fun little section here. Elevations on it. GoPro, it doesn't typically show very well, but there's some decent elevation changes here and there. So the hill that I hit the tree in the last lap, so I hit that a little cleaner this time. Still at this point trying to play around with like gear selection, trying to figure out what works best. I kind of sometimes fight between second and third, just depending on the speed, but super tight spot through here. A lot of stumps and roots, so struggled on it a few times when I wasn't being super smooth and balanced. And of course, hit another root, hooked the front end, moved it on. Apparently I'm talking to myself at this point in time, but definitely struggling, getting all jacked up. There's a beautiful view up here. We're kind of at the top, and this would be a fun day off in the distance. I don't have a lot of opportunity to look around and enjoy the views, but definitely a really neat track with the elevation change. You get a really good perspective of how high up you are. Started to come back down after that, and a fun flowy section here. Kind of tried to work on keeping my pace up and not using my brakes and just kind of flowing through. Bit of a drop there, and I didn't want to get too excited. But once again, it's really decent downward elevation, hard to tell. Just kind of a sharp left. This was steep at the very bottom. It was kind of a vertical drop. Just kind of a fun little spot. Just trying to give a perspective of some of the track conditions and flowy areas that I really enjoyed. Done a few laps, kind of out doing my own thing, but the third lap was my fastest lap. Certainly having a couple of sighting laps helped, and was able to kind of pick up the pace. Trying to utilize any space to get on the throttle. I find typically I start coasting a lot in areas that are easier, and unfortunately that's not the best method to go faster. So I gotta kind of consciously push myself to not take that opportunity to relax. Where we come back to the start finish, a bit of a berm developing there, a little flowy section. Getting back out on the motocross track, a little less dusty this time, which was helpful for keeping a little better pace. One area that I'm not super comfortable with, definitely working on that. Able to catch up to someone. I think he was in a different class. He wasn't running A, I'm not sure. This is one of the bus guys. We were kind of back and forth a few times, followed him for a while. It's always good to have someone kind of around you to kind of push you a little bit in spots where you might be typically slower. Also gives you an opportunity to see like areas that you're doing well in, or you can gain on people. I always found it helpful to have somebody to chase, maybe that's a little bit quicker, and give you that little motivation to push a little harder to keep up. Looks like somebody lost a number plate there on the tree, maybe, or something. It was some sort of plastic debris there, so somebody made a little contact at one point. But he lets me go by. I always struggle, it's like you finally get by someone, but you don't want to hold them up, so you're kind of consciously trying to push yourself so you don't get by someone and then hold them up. Quite a twisty track through here. It was kept trying to doze all the time. A lot of the entries into the woods, there was lots of imperfections in the ground. These ruts, I've still got to figure them out. Obviously, my body position wasn't great. There was another rut after that I caught, kind of drug me out again. So, definitely got to start looking ahead more. Looks like he lost it there on the edge. Took that right lane this time. Was able to get up cleanly. back down that switchback. Looks like, hard to read my watch on the bars, but it's around 56 minutes or so maybe, or just under, and bonked the face of the pit. Everything's a little dusty, so the camera footage isn't as good as it could be. I'm running a skeleton cover just to prevent damage to the lens, but fortunate pieces it does hold a little bit more dust, so the quality of the video is not as good as it typically is. Definitely some areas now that I'm watching, I could have been on the gas a lot harder. Used the opportunity to kind of get some better lap times, but I don't know, there's always next year. Had a lot of kind of ups and downs on the hills, and they're quite enjoyable. You can see my old rut where I drove into that mud hole, which is probably my least favorite part of the day, but I think actually after that first lap I had kind of settled down enough that it wasn't too bad after that, so definitely the beginning was the worst part of it. This rut here was quite interesting. Again, I got my weight off centered and tipped her over. Seemed to be pretty good traction with that tire and a varying range of conditions, so definitely need to work on my gear selection in the mud. I'm dabbing my feet here, and there's a lot of roots under the mud, so it was really gripping the bars way too hard at this point. Pretty much just trying to bend the bars around. I figured it would be helpful, but not always the case. Up around this corner if there was people in the way. I could hear a bike off in the distance, so I knew somebody wasn't too far away. Oh, he must have stalled her there. Luckily there was just enough room to sneak by him. Interesting rut that was developing there with a root at the end, and as the race went on, it definitely had to use your momentum to your favor to kind of clear that without too much struggle. There's a couple sections of this track that are super challenging. You just trying to push through at this point. There's a spot there that was really rough. It seemed like we struggled with the front end going through there. Still running the OEM ER48 forks, and it's one of those things in the back of my head where I just do off-road stuff. I'm potentially looking at doing a spring conversion. It's one of those things that everything works okay. It's just, could it be better? A little more compliant, flush. We'll see. I've had the bike a couple of years now, and right now I'm sitting around a little over 250 hours on it now, so it certainly has been a reliable bike. So it's the limiting factor in my speed and my ability is not the bike at this point, it's my conditioning, which is horrible. So a new bike's probably not going to make me any faster, so I find it's the devil you know that's easier to deal with, so I'll just kind of keep riding what I got, and I'll work on upgrading the suspension in the future. Going back to where we started at, is where we launched from. Trying to utilize this opportunity to flow a little, but I gotta do a little more drinking, so I gotta take these opportunities, even if just relax a little bit, but I can tell them quite loose and sand in the corner, so I'm carrying a ton of speed. Now that we've spread out a bit, we have a little bit more visibility, which makes it easier to kind of see obstacles, debris, other people. See that view off in the distance there. Neat little spot they have up here. It's super cool. They let us come up and ride on this private land. I believe this track's only been part of the circuit for the last couple of years, so far it's been one of my favorite spots to go. Sunlight's kind of reflecting off the lens a bit with the dust. It just seems like everything gets a little more dusty and image quality deteriorates because of that, but you get the idea of kind of what's happening at least. pothole at the bottom of that hill, and ended up putting a platform or a plank over top. It's still there this year, so I assume it's maybe one of those constantly wet spots. So it's kind of handy to have that there. Last year it got so deep that it pegs the bottom out and it would just stop you solid. So kind of fix that partway through a race last year. So. Back to that gravel pit area. And that was a neat little section there. This time I took a second just to kind of collect my thoughts there. Might have took a few seconds away, but better than getting all jacked up by tipping over. So. Kind of weighing out the best approach you might do here. On a couple of these sections, it's really rough. It's really worked your entire body. You had to move around a lot. A lot of roots, so I had to be very predictable and smooth with the steering. If I didn't, it would just really start putting me all over the place. And as the race went on, we got more fatigue. Certainly, the unpredictability piece increased, that's for sure. Always going back and watching these videos, it's hard to judge how deep holes are in ruts. They definitely getting deeper throughout the race. Every time, every lap, it would change up a little bit. I think here I'm getting passed by an expert, so getting towards the later part of the race, so knowing that faster class is probably going to have some guys, so something in the back of my head. Certainly I don't want to hold anybody up and cause them to get irritated with me, so. Coming here to the end of the race. It was 2 hours and 17 minutes was my total time, I believe it was, coming through at 2:17:32. Ended up doing 5 laps. Definitely challenged myself physically and mentally, but really good time, great track, great venue. Definitely will be back and hopefully be a little more competitive next time. But anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.